everyone, I'm Jack Watson, UI UX designer, illustrator, animator, donut connoisseur, and today we've got an Illustrator Foundations challenge, and being December 1st, we'll be creating a few snowflake ornaments and creating different variations using recolor artwork. In the description below this video, you'll find links to download your file to create with us today, other challenges, and our Illustrator Discord. Whoop, gotta find the link. Alright, first of all, our file today has a few different artboards, so we can create a few different snowflakes and different color options. Over in the resources in the file here, I've got some links for you, including this one, this snowcrystals.com link here that's got different photos to like close-ups, microscopes of snowflakes for you to kind of reference. You can get an idea here. Lots of different shapes to choose from. I'm just going to grab a couple here. I'll click on one and we'll copy it, and then we can just go right into Illustrator, zoom out a little bit, and we'll just paste it into our file so we can reference it. So I'll paste, go back to our website here, we'll go back out, we'll pick a couple different ones, just some different variations of styles here so we can kind of get a good selection. Oh, looks like I'm just gonna copy it. Alright, so now we've got a couple in here. We can just kind of move this and scale it up a little bit, holding down Shift and dragging. So we've got some snowflakes in here. There's a few different methods we can use to create repeating designs around a circle, aka snowflakes. So I'm going to start with this kind of long, spindly one here, and the first method we're going to use is we're going to use the polar grid. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on my first artboard. And you can find the polar grid underneath our line tool here. So if you click and hold down on your line tool, you can navigate down to the polar grid tool. And I'm just going to start to drag it out. And as I do that, you're going to see this weird target shape with all these lines. We actually don't need any of those radiating outward lines. So in order to get rid of them, you can adjust those specifically by using the up and down arrows on your keyboard. So the up arrow is going to increase the number of radial lines, and then going down with the down arrow, we're going to decrease the number of radial lines until we only have the outside ones. And then for the inside, those kind of straighter lines that are angled outwards, you can use your left and right arrows. The left arrows are going to decrease the number of lines all the way down, or they're going to increase. We're going to go up until we have, let me count. We need 6, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because snowflakes, aka water molecules, have 6 sides. So we've got our polar grid here, and we need to add a stroke color so we can see it. So I'm going to click on the stroke to bring it to the front, and then I'm going to click on black to just add a black stroke so we can see it. Zooming on in here, now that we've got our snowflake in place, I'm going to click on the direct selection tool, and I can just click on this outside edge. We don't actually need this outside circle, so just clicking on it with the the direct selection tool, I'm going to delete and delete. Hitting the delete key twice is going to remove that outside edge. So now we've got a nice base for our snowflake. So taking a look down here at our examples, we've got one that's made out of all these shapes, and we've got this one that's made out of all these kind of branching elements, right? And they're all kind of equal on each side. So we need to create some angular branches that are going to be the same on the left and on the right, the same angle and the same size. So there's a really easy way to do that by using our rectangle tool. So I'm going to select my rectangle tool. Dragging and holding Shift is going to make a square. And then once I've got my shape here, there's 2 options when you hover over a shape to either scale it. It's going to give you those kind of opposite straight arrows. If I hold down Shift, it's going to scale. But if we hover over a little bit farther out, we're going to get a rotate, and I'm going to hold down Shift to rotate at 45-degree increments. So now they've got this diamond shape, so we're almost there, right? If you kind of drag it over here. Another thing to note, I almost always have smart guides on. Under View, smart guides are checked. That just gives me these little pink indicators that helps me line things up as I'm working. So that's helping me kind of snap this into the center. But if we drag it off for a minute here, I'm going to switch to my direct selection tool. And then direct selection tool actually lets me click on each individual point on a shape and just kind of manipulate them individually. In this case, I'm going to select that top one, and just hit delete to remove it. So now we've got that shape that I was talking about that's angled. It's the same size on either side and it's the same angle. So we can grab our regular selection tool, bring it on over here, and then holding down shift and using our, making sure we've got that scale option selected, we can scale it down a little bit. And we can start to make these branches. Now, we could make a copy that goes all the way up to the top, but we can use a little bit of a shortcut to create this. So I'm gonna, with my object selected with the selection tool, holding down Alt and Shift, Alt or Option and Shift, I'm going to drag to make a copy all the way to the top. And then we'll scale this one down smaller. So now I've got our smaller shape at the top here, and we've got our larger shape at the bottom here. I'm going to click to select the first one, holding down Shift, select the second one, and then we're going to go up here and we're going to use a shortcut. We're going to use Object, Blend, and Make. And that's going to help us make those transitions without having to copy and scale each one, right? But this is a lot. These are a lot of shapes. I don't know that I want that many on my snowflake. You certainly could, but if you wanted to adjust the number, we can go back to the Object menu under Blend and go to Blend Options. When it comes up here, the kind of default is this smooth color. That's Illustrator kind of saying what is the number of steps that it thinks that it needs in order to create a smooth transition. In this case, I'm going to change it to specified steps. So it's got 7 steps between each of these currently, and I can decrease it down to get a number that I kind of want. So let's go with maybe, let's go with 4. And then I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so now we've got our branches kind of going off of the main line, but we need to have them cover all of our shapes, right? And we can't use the polar grid tool this time, it's not going to help us. We could do Command C and Command V to copy and paste, and we can kind of go through this process of kind of rotating them around and getting them into position, but that's going to be really annoying. So, oh, I almost forgot, there's one other thing that I want to do while we're on the subject. I want to add a tapered line. So I'm going to click on this blend here, and in the stroke panel, I'm going to just kind of click on those little arrows to open it up and get all of my options. And I'm going to go up here to my stroke weight, and I can use the up and down arrows just like I've been doing to change the parameters. So if I increase it, it's going to increase the size of my stroke weight. Down here we've got some stroke width profiles, and what those do is they change the way that your line appears. So you can kind of get a preview looking at these images, right? And we can click one that we want. So if we apply one, you can see it's going to add those little pointed edges there. We're going to pick this top one here because it's going to taper our line on both sides. So now we've got that set up. Let's go ahead and set up our other lines as well. We'll select our polar grid with the selection tool. And I'll just increase this line weight until it's something that I kind of like, making it pretty heavy. And then we'll go down here to our profiles, and we'll pick a tapered line. Now, if we pick this one, you're going to see that it's going to be kind of strange in the middle. For this design, since those all kind of converge at the center, we're going to pick this tapered line that gets skinnier to wider at the bottom. So it's going to meet in the middle and be wider where they all meet. Now, sometimes it might look to the opposite, or maybe you want the opposite. You can click on these little flip along, these 2 arrows down here next to the profile, and that's going to flip the heavier and the more narrow part. So it'll take your stroke width profile and it'll flip it. So if you end up with a shape that looks like this, you can just tap on that to get it kind of lined up there. Yes, we have a live chat over here on Behance and on YouTube, the Adobe Live YouTube channel, every day at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, and somebody in the chat is asking about using the radial symmetry to make snowflakes. We are going to get to that in a bit. I wanted to show a couple different ways that we could create these snowflake designs and repeat them. The first one being the polar grid. The second one is what we're going to do next for these branches. So I'm going to select my blend here, and we need to position each of these perfectly along the branching pieces of our polar grid. So in order to do that, I'm going to switch to the rotate tool over here. And when I do that, you can see there's this little tiny blue indicator. That indicator is where it's going to be rotating around. So if we switch, or if we just kind of use the rotate tool, currently it's going to rotate around that center part. Illustrator is placing that at the center of the bounding box by default. We can change where that position is by holding down Alt or Option and clicking. I've got smart guides on, so all I have to do is hover near the center of those branches, and I just click. When I do that, it's going to open up our rotate menu. don't panic. I know we have, like, you see the word angle and you're like, oh no, we have to do math. It's fine. It's not difficult. And we can use Illustrator to help us do that math. So we have a circle. We have a circle snowflake. A circle is 360 degrees. So we can type 360 degrees in our box, and we can divide it by the number of sides that we have. So we've got 6 sides on our snowflake, so 360 divided by 6. Then I'm just going to hit tab, and it's going to do the math for me. So Illustrator has told me that's 60 degrees, and this is important. This is an important step, and don't accidentally do this. I mean, you can, and we can fix it, but if you hit OK, what's going to happen is it's going to just move that shape for you. We don't want to move it. We actually want to make a copy. So I'm going to hit copy. When I do that, I've got a copy of my original shape rotated, so with that transform applied. Now we can repeat that transformation either by going up to Object, Transform, Transform again, or you can see it tells us what that shortcut key is. It's going to be Command D. So I'm going to hit Command D. It's going to do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, and voila, we have all of our snowflake shapes going around. Now there's one more way, and this is what Rick in our chat was talking about, that we can create a repeating design around a circle. So I'm going to draw out another shape. This time I'm going to use shape tools. So I'm going to go over here to my shape tools, the rectangle, and we'll grab the polygon tool. And similar to the polar grid, when I drag it out, it's going to give me a shape that's got sides. In this case, I think it's got 6. And we can use the up arrow keys to create more sides, and then we can bring the arrow keys down to get fewer sides. So up and down give you more or less sides on your polygon. And just the same, after I'm satisfied with the number of sides, I'll hold down Shift to constrain it so that it's, scaling and kind of like positioned on a straight line, essentially. So I'll drag something out there. We'll go down here and we'll use this little arrow here to swap our fill and stroke, so we've got a filled shape. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and we can use the radial repeat. So under Object, I'm going to go down to repeat, and you've got a couple different repeat options. In this case, I want radial. And that's going to give us a head start and just kind of make a radial repeat for us. Now, with the radial repeat, there's a couple of different handles or different kind of tools on our interface here. So this little tiny circle at the top here, what that's going to do is we drag it out and drag it in, is it's going to increase the distance between our shapes while keeping the shapes the same size. So we can add more or less space between each of our triangles. I'm going to Command Z to undo that. The other tools here are this little circle with these 2 arrows at the top. This one will increase or decrease the number of triangles, and it'll even tell you next to the instances there how many you've got if you need. So you can do that. And then this bottom one down here, this one just takes away kind of like think about it like a little Pac-Man that lets it like remove the number of triangles if you wanted fewer triangles. But I have a certain way that I like to do things, and I'm going to show that to you. So we've got our radial repeat. I'm going to drag it to where it's centered using my smart guides at the middle of my snowflake. And now you can actually use those scale and rotate tools in the bounding box just like you could a shape. So I'm going to hold down this time Shift to constrain it and Alt to scale it from the center. And when I do that, it's going to scale it on out. And you can see that it's going to make our objects a lot bigger, don't worry. But what I'm literally looking for here is I want to position that circle where I want it to lie on the space on my snowflake here. And we can fix the scale now by double clicking into one of our shapes. And now once we're in here, we're in this little like isolation mode, and that lets us edit the shapes inside of our radial repeat. So if you start with a radial repeat and you don't really like the way that the shapes are looking, you can double click to get into this isolation mode. In here, I can again hold down Alt and Shift to scale from the center, and I can scale, and as I scale, it's going to affect all of the shapes in my repeat. The same with rotating. I can rotate, and it's going to affect all of the shapes inside of my repeat. So once I'm happy with the way that looks, I can either click on this little arrow up here to get out of that isolation mode, or I can just hit the escape key. So I'll hit the escape key and it'll take me back out to my artwork. When you're in that isolation mode, you can only really edit the shapes in that repeat. It's, isolating them, so something to be aware of. Now that we've got that set up, I want to place each of these triangles in the negative space between my branches, sort of like in the pockets of my snowflake. So I need to decrease the number of these so that I have the same number of triangles as I have negative space. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the same number of branches. So I'm going to grab that arrow slider here and pull it down till we have 6. And you'll see now it's positioned those over each of my branches. I like using this method to work with the radial repeat because it makes sure that instead of using this little circle here, it keeps everything nicely aligned to my shape. It like perfectly centers everything. But we need to rotate this. We need to rotate it so it fits in the pocket. So I'll go up here, and once again, I'm going to use a transform rotate, this time from up in this menu. And we can do some math here again. So we know we have 360, and we've got 6 pockets. So we have 6, so that's 60 degrees, that's where we're at currently. But we need to take that and we need to divide it in half because we want half of 60 because that'll give us the angle that is a pocket there. So I'm going to divide it by 2. And when I do that, it's going to rotate it the exact degrees that I need in order to fit it into that pocket. And then I will hit OK. Alright, so now we've got our snowflake set up and it's looking good. We used the 3 different ways to make the rotation happen. Now I'm going to clean this up and start to make it look like a ornament. So the first thing that I want to do is with my radial repeat selected, I'm going to go to object and I'm just going to hit expand. That's going to remove my repeat and just give me filled objects. You can see by this menu here, that's what I'm going to get. So it'll give me filled objects. The next thing that I want to do is drag to select everything, and then I'm just going to hit Command G while I'm here, dragging to select with my selection tool so that I can make a group while I'm here. Just makes it easier. I'm going to go up to my object, and then I need to expand my blends. If you remember, we made everything using blends, so we need to make sure we expand that next. So we're going to go to Object, Blend, and then Expand. And you can zoom in and see that now we've got lines for each of those. There's one more thing that we need to do, and that is to expand our lines to get shapes. So we've gone from having all of those lines and all of those repeats down to having just shapes. So we're going to go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. Now we've got individual shapes. I'm going to go to the Pathfinder tool by going into Window and Pathfinder, and I'm just going to hit Merge. When I do that, it's going to merge all my shapes into one, so now we've got our base shape. The reason that we needed to do all of that is I need to go to Object. I'm going to make a die cut snowflake. So we're going to make like a snowflake that's the same shape as the original shape here. You'll see in a second. So we're going to go to Object. We're going to go to Path, Offset Path. And what the Offset Path tool lets us do is it lets us add or remove, decrease, increase or make a copy of our shapes that is either larger or smaller, equal distance from the original. So it's 10 pixels offset. Can bring it down to the negative to make it smaller. I'm going to go way up into the positive though because I want to remove all of that white space. I don't want any white space in here. I want to remove all those little gaps. There's another thing that I can do here. This looks a little aggressive. I want my snowflake to be friendly. So I'm going to change these sharp corners from a miter joint, which is a square or like an angular joint, to a round joint. And that's going to give me these like round happy snowflake corners, right? And we'll just increase that a little bit. I'm using the arrow keys to bring it up a little bit. And I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to make that nice shape for me. And I can just, I'll change this to be a gray so we can see it. Whoop, I had it applied to the stroke. Let's reverse those, and then add none to the stroke. So now we've got our snowflake. We've got kind of like a die cut shape for our ornament. Now let's play with color. So I'm going to drag to select all of my shapes here. We've got our background for our snowflake and we've got the main snowflake. I'm going to hit Command C and Command V to make a copy. I'm going to scale this down a bit by holding down Shift and dragging with the selection tool. And I'm going to add a little bit of drop shadow on this to help it stand out. So we're going to go to Effects. We're going to go to Stylize, we're going to go to Drop Shadow. It's a little bit strong at the beginning, so I like to bring the opacity way down and then bring these offsets way down. The offsets are how far to the left and down. That's what the positive numbers do. If you wanted to go up and to the right, you'd use negative numbers in these. So we've got a little bit of a drop shadow. We'll hit OK. And then I'm going to make another copy here just by dragging to select everything, holding down Shift and Alt or Option to make a copy. And then I will change the color of this one as well. So we'll make this like a light color, selecting my fill to bring it forward, make it white. I'll make this background a little bit darker. So I'm working with grayscales here because I want to just focus on the values. I want to kind of make sure that my original snowflakes here have good contrast first. So we've got our snowflakes here. They've got good contrast. Let's head on over to Adobe Color. All right, so we are now at color.adobe.com. This is one of your resources in the list of links as well. I'm going to use the Explorer tab, but before I do that, there's something I want to note about this Create tab. If you've never worked with libraries before, you're going to want to make sure that you tap on this little plus sign over here. That way you can make a new library, and you want to name it something memorable. So in this case, we're making snowflakes, so I'll just call this library Snowflakes. And I'll hit Create, and it'll add that library to my libraries. Now when I click on this Explore, I can go up here and I can type in snow, and it's going to pull up some references for snow. So when I went into this Explore, it kind of lets you search by like a keyword to see color palettes that you like. And there's one other thing we need to do before we pick some color palettes, and that is we need to click on this little drop down next to the search box, and we need to find our snowflakes library. Anything that we click to add in here, it's going to add it to whatever library you have selected up here. So it's really important to set that before you start picking things. And then when I'm looking at colors, I'm looking for something that's got a good range of hues, so lots of colors, and a good range of values, so lights and darks. So we're going to pick some things that I think look pretty, this is kind of fun. I'm just going to click this Add to Library icon, and we're just going to start adding some things to our library, sort of indiscriminately, things that kind of catch our eye, right? All right, so we've got a couple of options in here. Now when I go back here, I can open up my libraries window, and if you're not seeing the library that you had selected, you can just click back to go to the whole list, and then down here we can find our snowflakes library. So now we've got a whole bunch of libraries in here to choose from. We can click on one of them or a couple of them. I can just click on the first one, holding down Shift, I can just select all of them at once. And then right clicking, I can say Add Theme to Swatches. And when we go over to our swatches panel over here, you can see that it's now added each of these as a color folder. The next thing that we want to do is we want to select our snowflakes. So I'm going to select this first one here. Actually, I'll select both of them. I'm going to drag to select both of my snowflakes. And there's this little icon in the control bar that says Recolor Artwork that you can click on, or you can go to Edit, Edit Colors, Recolor Artwork. And then you can get this window here. I'm getting lots of windows today. This window here is going to let you change the colors of your artwork. So we can go to Color Library, and we can make sure that we go to Color Group. Those are our, you can either pick Document Swatches, it'll be all the swatches in your file, or you can go to Color Group and you can specifically pick one of the color themes that we brought in. So I'm going to pick this one that's called Snow, and it's immediately going to apply our colors to our design. There's this button down here. This is probably the one you're going to use the most, which changes the color order randomly, so you can apply different colors from that full set to your snowflakes here. That's kind of fun. The other options are this. Down here you can change the hue and the saturation, or the brightness and the saturation. So if you wanted to adjust those colors, you didn't have enough contrast, you can adjust the sliders here, bringing down the what is this, brightness down or up, so we can make it lighter or we can make it darker using that brightness one, or we can switch over to saturation and we can adjust that, making it more saturated, making it less saturated. If you really mess up when you're working with this and you're like, I don't like the way this looks anymore, you can very easily just hit this reset at the top, and it's just going to bring you back to what you originally had. And then you can go back, grab your color group, and you can kind of restart all over again. Okay, but those look pretty good to me. You could keep going, making a whole bunch more different ones using different color books, but we're going to be happy with these for now, and we're going to go to File, Export, Export for Screens. And this lets you save out your file as a PNG or JPEG, so you can save it to the Discord. I'm gonna pull this up so we can see. I'm just gonna pick, today I'm just gonna check the second artboard. I don't need the other ones. I'm gonna go to export, and it's gonna save out my files into a folder for me, and then I can navigate over to the Discord here, and we can go to our Daily Creative Challenge DCC feedback channel. That's where you're gonna upload your file so that everybody can see your work. I can just drag my PNG onto this and say, here's my snowflakes. Hit enter, and it's going to post it to the Discord. So you can get feedback from all of our mentors. You can see Andre is killing it with these snowflakes. Tons of variety in there. Love to see it. So that is awesome. All right, but that's going to be it for today. I can't wait to see all the snowflakes that you guys make. I'm sure you'll come up with tons of color varieties using that Recolor Artwork tool. Thank you for hanging out with me today for this Illustrator Foundations Challenge. We made different ornaments using the Polar Grid, shape tools, transforms, Pathfinder, Recolor Artwork, radial repeats, tons of stuff we went over today. We're live every day at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time at behance.net/Adobe Live, as well as the Adobe Live YouTube. So stay here for more live content. Bye, everyone!